Hello and welcome to the Throwback Thursday podcast. My name is Breland. I'm here with my husband Bryce.
I'm Bryce.
Happy Thanksgiving from our family. We are so excited to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving with you today. Normally we film this podcast at the Faith at Home Center at church, but because it's Thanksgiving and it's a day for the family, we decided to have you into our living room today.
Welcome.
So happy Thanksgiving from the Schubert house. Welcome into our home. So, because it is Thanksgiving, we were thinking about Thanksgiving traditions, and I know a tradition that we have, that a lot of families have, is going around the lunch or the dinner table and saying one thing or some things that they're grateful for. Each member of the family is grateful for. So, we're going to keep that tradition alive and kick it off with something we're thankful for.
Well, I'm thankful for my family, of course, Breland, and then our little guy, Bear. He's a dog, not a human, so he's just a little crazy right now, so he's not able to join us, but I'm very thankful for them.
Yeah, I'd say the same. This is our first Thanksgiving being married, so I'm super grateful for that. It's been an awesome year just learning marriage and getting to live life alongside my best friend. It's super cool, so I'm really, really grateful for that. But as we continue in the podcast today, thinking about being grateful, and Pastor Bill's been talking about for a while the whole ideas of praise and Thanksgiving and just incorporating that into our daily lives, not just Thanksgiving Day. We wanted to talk about one attribute or characteristic of the Lord that we're especially grateful for and that we've seen played out in our lives. So for me, that's been God being in control. I'm so grateful that God is in control. I am a little bit of a control freak, but I know that anytime I take matters into my own hands, that's when things start to go south. So I'm so grateful that God being in control of my life is the best thing that could ever happen to my life. And I love Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 22. This is God speaking, and he says, "I, the Lord, define the ocean's sandy shoreline as an everlasting boundary that the waters cannot cross. The waves may toss and roar, but they can never pass the boundaries that I set." And I love this verse for quite a few reasons. The first one is that in my Bible, this section is titled Judgment Proclaimed. And I love that because God is speaking in the middle of Jerusalem's rebellion, and he's letting them know that he has been, still is, and will always be in control, even in the midst of their rebellion. And I also love the physical example of God's control, and in God's control, we see his grace so evident too. Can you imagine if the ocean didn't have a boundary? There wasn't a boundary line for all of the vastness of the ocean. It would just be a tsunami all the time. I mean, we'd be walking around with our heads literally underwater or close to being underwater and just trying to grasp for air all the time. But because God is in control, that boundary is there, and in his grace and in his kindness and in his control, we have protection. And the third thing I love is that God is in control of everything. My life and the world, just absolutely everything. The NASB version of this verse says, "Though the waves toss, they cannot prevail. Though they roar, they cannot cross over that boundary." And this to me is a reminder that life is sure to get messy. The waves aren't always going to be smooth for sailing. But even in that, God is in control. And his control is the best thing, like I said, that could ever happen to me or my life. And I know that there are countless instances where I thought I knew best and I was going for it, and then a door closed, or maybe I was just redirected altogether, and I was upset about it or like a little thrown off by it. But then looking back at the situation sometime down the road, I see God's intervention, and I see how he was so specifically in control of that situation, and I'm so much better off because of it. So that's mine. God being in control. That's the thing I think that I'm most grateful for now, and also just looking back on the course of my life. For you, what you got?
Well, of the many attributes of God, one that I'm very grateful for and thankful for is his consistency. just regardless of any situation, God is consistent. He always has been and always will be exactly who he says he is.
Yeah.
Whether that's in his faithfulness or just in the way he provides, it's consistent. So, yeah, I love that. In Hebrews 13:8, it says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I was thinking about that like looking back throughout the Bible, whether it's in the Old Testament or New Testament, we see just countless stories of God's consistency in so many different ways. Like even with the Israelites, God consistently provided for them.
Yeah.
Even just with when they first came out of Egypt and they were wandering through the desert and they didn't have any food, every day God would bring manna and quail. And that was something he did every single day. Whether the Israelites believed that was going to happen or trusted in him that was going to happen, that didn't affect the fact that God did it every single day and brought them what they needed. Or even just, later on, the way that God, even just consistently, when Jesus was on earth, the way that he was consistently interacting with people and never wavering, even though even the Pharisees were trying to stump him or try and get him to say one thing that contradicts another and all this stuff, that we never saw Jesus falter in that, and I find it real easy sometimes to forget that that's the same God that was active, thousands and thousands of years ago, is the same God that is active now and will be to come. Just because situations of what happened before might be different from what we're going through now, and it's real easy to think that it's completely different when it really isn't. God is who he is. He is consistent. He hasn't changed and never will change.
Yeah.
And even just looking back in my own life, I can see just his faithfulness and provision and guidance throughout the whole time, even if I wasn't necessarily trying to follow him or I wasn't looking for it. I remember when I first really believed that Jesus Christ is Lord and he came down from heaven, died for us, and rose again, was at the time one of the biggest life changes I could have been going through. My family was moving to another city an hour away, and I was devastated. But I remembered, I think it was the day before we were actually moving, I remembered just laying in my bed, just being like, man, I can't do this. I don't know what to, I'm losing my best friends. I'm losing, everything I know to be true. And granted, I'm, maybe 6, 7 years old, so I didn't know much to be true. But I'm still, for where I was at in life, I just didn't know. Yeah. I was lost. And I just remembered, the stories that I heard back in Sunday school, just about this God and who he is, and just all that he's done. And I remembered it's you know what? I was told that the Bible says that God was, I don't understand it this way, but God is consistent. What he did for those people in the Old Testament or even the New Testament, he can still do that today. And so that's when I was you know what? I want to trust in him because I know I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
And even moving on in my life, I've just seen countless times different ways that he has been consistent. And so, yeah, even just with little things giving us, a roof over our head or jobs that we can go to or just family and friends that are just awesome. He's just been consistent in so many ways. But how cool is it that I wrote this down because I thought it was very important. But just how cool is it that Jesus is the same all the time? His love is never going to change. His grace and mercy will never leave or run out. And the salvation he gives us will never expire. Yeah, God is just so good in so many ways, and we can count on him to always be good.
Absolutely.
Whether we think he will be or not.
Yeah, he's still going to be good because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And so as you go through your day today and start to talk about the things that you're thankful and grateful for, we would love to hear that too. So make sure you write us on Facebook or Instagram or any one of PCBC's social media sites and just let us know what you're grateful for too, because we'd love to be encouraged by that as well. There's so much power in speaking it. There's power for ourselves because we're encouraged by it as we speak it out loud, but there's power in encouraging other people with that too. So we'd love to hear that. And we hope you have just an absolutely awesome Thanksgiving with your family and your friends. We will see you at church on Sunday morning at 9:45 or 11:05. But also we want to say thank you so much for an awesome year with the TBT podcast. This is going to be our last one. Not forever, just for 2019. We will kick it back off in 2020. And so we're super excited about that. But for now, we are going to be done for the year. And so we hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving, an awesome rest of your year. And we'll see you Sunday. It's not just like a huge goodbye.
Yeah, we'll
oh, here we go.
See you soon.